Hey everyone, I'm Bren. Welcome back to Gigi the Garden Girl. I'm a avid home gardener here in New South Wales, Australia. And before we get into this week's garden update, I just want to acknowledge, or I'm sure many of you already know because it has made world news, we have had a crazy weather week here in this part of the world. There has been record-breaking rainfall, flooding, so much devastation here in New South Wales. People's lost their homes, their livelihoods. Yeah, it's been really quite awful. Where I live in my shire, there has been so much flooding, road closures. I saw yesterday one of the bridges, part of the bridge collapsed. Oh, there's even areas where they are still cut off, some of the more rural, remote areas cut off by floodwaters. Yeah, it's just awful. In this video, I am going to show you what I've had to do with some of my dahlias that were lying dormant under the ground. I also did some more seed sowing and planting out seedlings. So we'll take a look at all of that. So please just sit back and relax for a few minutes and let's get into it now. My garden is so muddy. The grass is under here somewhere. The pools of water are gone now. However, on the weekend there were parts of the garden, like in this spot, that were completely underwater. I've had to run into the greenhouse because it started to rain again. It's been on and off for days, but at least it's not as heavy as it was over the weekend. That was crazy weather. Anyway, what I was going to say about the water that was pooling in that spot. Now, when I say it was covered in water, it was, but only by a couple of inches, so nothing too bad, but enough to have me a little bit concerned, because that was one of the areas, one of the garden beds where I had a few Dahlia tubers lying dormant. And as many of you know, and I've learned over the years, Dahlia tubers do not like to be sitting in water. They can rot quite easily, and this is something I've never really had an issue with before over winter time, because we don't really get that much rain here. But not this year. There's been so much rain. I made a decision one of the days over the weekend when it was pouring down to come out, dig up those tubers, because I do not want to lose any of them. I have babied them for years. Every year I purchase more of them, and they're not cheap here in Australia. I want to make sure that, you know, they're long lasting and I have them for many years to come. Here are the dahlias which I dug up, and as I was doing so I made sure to label them. This one is a Winky Whopper, a beautiful dinner plate dahlia. And it's important to label them. It's very obvious why, isn't it? Because when they are just tubers, it's so hard to tell the difference between them. I'm just going to share with you now how I'm going to store these dahlia tubers over the next few weeks of winter. I am certainly no expert, but this is what I'm going to do. When you dig these out, they are covered in soil. So what I did was I just got a hose and removed all of that. Now, after this stage, I'm going to keep them in the little greenhouse upside down like this, making sure I leave the label on them, just to help them dry out a bit more if there's any moisture in between the tubers. Then I'm going to store them in containers like this. So I'll just put a layer of dry potting mix in there. I will put in the tubers on top that are nice and dry, so everything in here will be dry. Then I'm going to cover the soil, or the potting mix over the top, and this whole thing will be stored in a frost-free, dark, dry location. So I'm thinking I'll put them underneath the house, and hopefully, if I'm successful, they won't rot, and I will be able to plant them out into the garden beds again come mid-spring. I've got quite a lot to show you over here in the raised garden bed area. I'm walking quite slowly because it's very slippy. Even though there has been a ton of rain this week, there have been a few periods where it has been dry, or at least not heavy rain, just a light drizzle, and I have made the most of them, coming outside and getting some seeds sown and seedlings popped into this area. I moved a lot more of this compost into more of my raised garden beds, and that gave me the opportunity to sow all of these seeds into here. You might notice that I used some wooden stakes to divide up the sections, which made it a bit easier for sowing. Let's go through what I popped in. So in this row along here where I'll be putting up an archway, I put in these climbing flowers, which are beautiful sweet peas, a variety called Valari Harrod. I really love that pink salmony colour. Here's some of the sweet pea seeds, and a little tip with these that a lot of people do, I believe my granddad did this as well. If you want to help speed up germination, you can actually soak these seeds overnight in water the day before you're going to plant them. And what happens there, it helps, oh, I just lost them. It helps to soften the outer coating, which can speed up germination. Beside them are some watermelon radishes. Then we have a few daikon radishes. Here are hinna benny turnips. Sorry, I'm definitely not pronouncing that right. And then here are some round Spanish radishes. Along the front I have a load of pansies and violas. These four here I actually grew last year as well. I bought them in a punnet. They're really pretty, called Antique Shades. Beautiful looking pansy. If you live in New South Wales and you're looking for a splash of colour in your garden over winter time, you can't go wrong with buying a bit of potted colour. And at the moment the garden centres are full of those cold hardy annual flowers and edible crops too. And you know what, before the rain arrived I went and purchased a whole load of seedlings and some beautiful potted colour that I'm going to show you now. I did get slightly carried away and spent more money than I should have. Oh wow, look, there's a bee, and that makes it all worthwhile, being able to feed the beautiful bees during winter time. These are a dwarf variety of snapdragon, and my local garden centre sells the most beautiful potted colour at a very reasonable price, $3.50 for each of these. And they're already covered in lovely flowers, and they will continue to flower now right through winter and well into spring. Everything in this container I purchased too. This is a white arrangement, some alyssum. There's this ornamental kale with some really striking looking foliage, and I love how it has the pink blush in the center. A white snapdragon, and what I did here was I cut off the flowers on top, because by doing that it helps the plant put the energy into establishing roots. And I actually did this pot first before I put in the snapdragons in here, and I decided, you know what, I'm not going to take all the lovely flowers off there because it's the few very small amount of colour I have in the garden, and I'm just going to leave them because I think they look really beautiful and puts a big smile on my face when I come out here. So although I did it to this snapdragon, I won't be doing it to the rest of them. Finally, in here I actually removed some of these flowers too. I'll just pick one up off the ground. This is called Bellis perennis. I think it's an English daisy, that's the common name for it. I grow these two every year, and this one is, as you can see there, a lovely white flower with a yellow centre. I'm looking forward to seeing this pot fill out. I think it's going to be very striking. In here are polyanthus. I grow these two every year. I actually had a beautiful pot a couple of years ago. It was absolutely jam-packed with colour. If I can find that, I will pop it up on the screen now. Oh, I was just in love with it. This is a lovely annual mum, and although with the other pots I crammed the seedlings in, with this one I didn't bother because I know it will fill out fast and it will be covered in a blanket of these beautiful little daisy flowers. For the edibles, I purchased this broccoli bambino. It's an F2 hybrid. I've never grown this particular one before. I'm really interested to see how it will do here in my garden. I'm here with some of my seedlings. Oh, I've been putting more and more in the ground, but I still have a heap of these bok choy. Yeah, bok choy to pop in, and they look like they're about to burst out of these containers. Let's have a look and see. Yeah, oh wow, look at that. They are definitely ready to go in the ground. In this bed I got in the onions. So in here there's a mix of the red and, you know, the more traditional brown onions, and I still have quite a few left over. I'm not sure if I'm going to have room to put these in the ground. What I may end up doing is just giving them away to my friend who's an amazing onion grower, so I know they will definitely go to a good home. I haven't been very successful growing onions in the past, so I've done a lot of research to hopefully ensure that I have a good crop this year. And from the information I gathered, I feel like there are 3 big important tips to mention. One is to place your onions in a full sun location. 2 is to have them in nitrogen rich soil. And number 3, which is something I haven't done in the past, is to make sure you space them correctly, because even though they're really tiny now at the moment, it's important to give the bulb part at the base enough room to develop and grow to its full potential. Over here, I actually did this before the rain, but I didn't get a chance to show you last week. This big bag here was recommended by Keith. It's propagating sand. I purchased it from Bunnings if anyone's looking for it. I've never actually used propagating sand before, and I opened it up and used it in this spot where I have sown some carrots. The cardboard is over the top just to hold in the moisture, and you can see here what I've done is I have marked out some rows where I put in the carrot seeds, mixing them up with a bit of the sand just to make sure, or to try and get a bit more even distribution of the tiny little carrot seeds. So no signs of any seedlings yet. Maybe by next week or so I may see a few pop up. With the beetroot seedlings that are in this tray beside the spinach, I popped a few of them into this garden bed where I already have some larger beetroot plants. However, you can see there's not too many of them. They were filling this entire area, but a few of them died off on me. So great thing is I was able to put in some of the smaller seedlings into here just to fill out the gaps. I left this here as a reminder to show you. So I had a packet of freesias which were beginning to sprout in their bag. Now I could have put these into a pot, but I decided to pop them in the ground along the edge of these raised garden beds. I think they will look really pretty there, and they have a lovely scent which hopefully I'll be able to smell every time I walk by this spot. The great thing about these flowers is that they are perennial. So this pack of 15 corms will multiply over the years, giving you a lot more blooms. And I believe it's recommended after around 3 years you can dig them up and divide them out, spreading these beautiful flowers around your garden. I'm back in the greenhouse because I want to quickly go through a few things that are happening in here. So I potted up the statice. This is the apricot statice, some calendula, paper daisies and chocolate Queen Anne's lace. I also sowed a load more seeds. I'll put the names of these in the description below if anyone's interested. I think just having a quick look here, they are mostly flowering annuals, which I'm really obsessed with. So you got Rubeckias, paper daisies, Feverfew, Scabiosa, stuff like that. Then I have 2 trays of dill and some phlox. I think I'm gonna have to re-sow all the seeds in this tray. Oh, hold on. There's one tiny pin cushion called lavender blue, but that is about it. Completely my fault because I didn't water them properly. So what I might do is I might just come in here and put some more seeds of each variety on top, and hopefully that will work. I am beginning to shiver. It's got so cold all of a sudden. So I think that's about it for this week, everyone. On Saturday, the weather is supposed to be nice, clear skies, hopefully. I've crossed my fingers, but I'm holding my top up because I don't want any cold air to get in there. Oh, yes, so if Saturday's a nice day, I plan on spending a bit of time out here doing a lot more prepping to the garden beds for spring. Usually on Saturdays it's taken up with a lot of like winter sports, but they have been cancelled because all the fields are saturated and they need to dry out. So I'll make the most of that, get a few hours over the weekend, and hopefully I'll have a good bit more to show you next Friday. Well, until then, everyone, I hope you have a great week ahead and happy gardening.